So one of the reasons why most unicorns, so companies that become worth more than 1 billion euros or dollars, come from the Silicon Valley or from China, apart from the rampant IP theft that is happening there, is actually a big problem for Europe, but one that we can solve. And so that is access to capital. And it might seem a little bit distant, a little bit abstract, but the problem is that we actually build a lot of crazy stuff here in Europe, and we are actually behind most of the inventions. And if you look into the United States, who is actually running those companies, who are the top scientists in these companies, they tend to be Europeans that migrated there recently. So the issue that we have is, and you can perfectly see this when you look at the development of AI, right? It's the blockbuster technology, but it started in Europe. It was DeepMind in London who was actually 5 years ahead of everybody else, and they were at the cutting edge. But when the American companies woke up and they were very late to the party, which they are often, right? So don't believe the hype of, oh, the Americans are always so quick and so early. No, they're not. They're really not. So they were, again, behind the whole thing. They woke up to it finally, but then they started poaching the developers, the engineers at DeepMind. And at some point of time, DeepMind couldn't remain independent anymore. They wanted to. They didn't want to sell to Google, which in the end they did. They wanted to stay independent, but they did not have access to the money that was necessary to keep the talent and to invest into the research. And this is a story that happens again and again and again. Even the startups that are well-founded in Europe, they all have, right now, Peter Thiel as their founder. Like, look up the valuation rounds, the funding rounds, look up who's buying all the stuff. It's Peter Thiel. The guy is shitting on Europe every day of the week. And at the same time, he's buying all the technology, he's recruiting all the people here, because the Americans are playing a mind game on us. They know that they are not that good at all of this stuff. They need Europeans in research institutions, they need Europeans in their startups, and it's in their interest to hold us down and to just steal the talent and to buy up everything they can get their hands on, because they themselves, they're very capable, but not as capable as Europeans. And so what we need is access to massive amounts of capital in Europe, and Europe is a rich continent. We have the money. I think the problem is that we don't have a unified capital market because every country stands on its own. The capital doesn't flow from one country to the other easily, and so we don't have access to as much capital. It's known that, for example, the German Chancellor is working on this, that the EU has this on their radar. But until we solve this, what's going to happen is that all the good founders of startups, of like the massive startups, they'll go to the United States because they don't have another choice. It's easier for them, but even if they want to do it in Europe, even if they're so genius that they could pull it off, they can't do it because they will run out of capital and then they have to sell or they have to move to the United States anyway. And so unless we solve this, the United States will keep poaching our best ideas, they'll keep poaching our best engineers and founders, and access to capital is a little bit abstract, but it's necessary if we want to have the top companies and if we want to control our destiny and not hand everything over that we build over to the Americans.